Hey everyone, it's Zane, and today I'm going to be reviewing Radio Silence by Alice Oseman. This book got all the hype when it was first released, and it's still getting a lot of hype for a good reason. Radio Silence is absolutely incredible, you guys. It has friendships and family and amazing themes surrounding the internet and social media and identity and everything you could want in this kind of novel. On top of that, it was so relatable for me. But we are clearly jumping the gun already. The first part of this review will be spoiler free, and then I will be jumping into a spoilery section. So Radio Silence follows our main character Francis, who's a very academic, high-achieving student in 6th form, which is essentially the transition from high school to university for the UK students. So Francis is kind of seen as this just academic, high-achieving student who doesn't really do much other than study. But she actually has a side hobby where she listens to this podcast called University. And on top of that, she does fan art and engages in fan theories on Tumblr. So while she has these two worlds going on, they quickly start to move together as she realizes that Aled, a friend she has in real life, is the creator of the podcast. So one thing I really liked in this novel was their relationships. And it wasn't even just romantic relationships. In fact, I would say the main relationship was a platonic relationship between Francis and Aled. It was just so nice to see all the moments where they were bonding and relating to all the struggles that they faced as students, having pressure going to university and having to make something of their lives. Now, this is a very character-driven story. If you're looking for a super fast-paced plot, I wouldn't necessarily recommend this, but the character moments, as I mentioned, were so freaking sweet. I love the fact that it was a platonic relationship that carried the story, just because we're so used to seeing so many romances in YA that it was just refreshing for me. The relationship between Frances and her mom is also really cute, just because you could tell that no matter what, Frances's mom really wanted what was best for her, despite all these struggles that Frances was going through that her mom would never truly understand. And then we had Daniel, the typical character where you weren't meant to like him at the start, but then as you learn more about him, you start to like him a lot more. He's actually the head boy in the story, while Frances is the head girl. And then Aled, who I just found to be such an interesting character, you guys. There was just so many layers to him. At first, I thought he was genuinely just this awkward character who we wouldn't really see too much of, but then we start to learn that there's just so much to him. It kind of touches on the theme that you should never judge someone based on how you know them at school. I know I, as well as many others I'm sure, did that, where you see someone who is very quiet and you assume that that's just who they are, but like anyone, we're more complex than that. I also really enjoyed the other characters like Karis, Rain, and even, not that I enjoyed her, but I respected her as a character because she evoked the kind of emotion that she wanted, Alan's mom. Every character just had something about them, and I feel like I learned something from each of these characters. So if you want a character-driven story, I would definitely recommend this novel. Now, a lot of people didn't love the fact that Alice Oseman included the ers and the ums in the dialogue, but that is exactly how teenagers talk, and for me, it completely added to the authenticity. I also love Frances's inner monologue because we got to see her side comments, which were, her humor was very awkward and self-deprecating, but not to the point where it got annoying or too much. Now, there are so many important themes. I think a big one that's relevant to all of us is the idea of social media and how it can be a beautiful thing that pulls people together, but it can also tear people apart in the same way. I can't say too much about that without getting into spoilers, but if you've read this book, just hang on for like 2 more minutes. There was also the idea of identity and how we feel as though our identity is tied to our academics or one part of our life just because that's what society tells us it is. And I just thought that was explored so beautifully. And then of course there were the more overt themes like friendship and family, which I mentioned earlier, which were just executed so well. I'm so sorry if the spoiler-free section didn't do much for you. It's a beautiful book. Watch some other videos, read some reviews, read the book. Please just read it. So I will now be getting into a spoilery section. The campfire scene, you guys, was so cute. I was so scared that, they're posting all these pictures to university, and I'm like, you're literally going to get caught, and it's going to be a big mess, and sure enough, they kind of were later on, but it was such a cute scene to see these 3 characters who are all so different, just bonding in such a cute way. One thing that was really difficult for me to read was all the pressure that these students were going through getting into university. It kind of took me back to grade 12 in high school, where literally everyone, no matter what their goals were just so stressed out because it was like, this is it. We have to do something after high school. This is all we've known for like 12, 13 years. And It was just difficult to read for so many reasons. But to see these characters find comfort in their hobbies, interests, and in each other when there's so much pressure being put on them by parents, family, society, etc., it was just really nice to see. The scene where Francis and Alan were fighting was so hard for me to read. It was just so hard because Francis was in the right to be upset and defensive because it wasn't her fault that it slipped. But by the same token, Aled totally should have been upset too because the one thing he loved was suddenly in jeopardy of being taken away from him. Now, Carol, Aled's mom, bye girl. She was so awful, but she was a great character for that reason. I liked how she didn't have any kind of redemption or explanation because sometimes characters are just bad. Well, I do understand the other argument where, you want to see why she was so almost evil. It was refreshing to just have a bad character without any kind of explanation. Another difficult scene was when Aled essentially cut everyone off because he was just so scared and he felt so alone and he didn't know what to do. It was just so sad and so difficult to read, but at the same time, you kind of understand why he was feeling that way. The one thing he loved and enjoyed was suddenly gone, and it's like there was nothing left for him. One scene that was hilariously cringy and kind of sad was Francis's Cambridge interviews. I was like, please just get it together. I could have given better answers about these books without having read them than she did. It was just like, oh, this is awful. But obviously it led her to applying to art college, which is essentially what she wanted to do. Now the scene where Daniel, Karis, Rain, and Francis all come together to try and essentially rescue Alan was just so cute. It's like you have all these different characters who have different motivations, different goals and aspirations just come together to help someone who really needs it. Okay, we need to calm down. Seeing all the hate mail on Alan's desk was such a devastating moment, and I know I've been saying all this sad stuff, but I feel as though those were the most powerful moments. There were a lot of cute moments too, but the sad moments were the ones that really hit me. Anyway, seeing all the hate mail on his desk was so sad because he loved this podcast so much, and the last thing he would want is for his fans to be disappointed. Again, it ties into that whole idea of social media and how you have to be very careful and you have to set very clear boundaries with it. In the end, I'm just so happy and relieved that Aled got his kind of happy ending, as did Francis, as did everyone really. So I guess that wasn't all perfect because you wouldn't want a happy ending for everyone. It was a little too clean in that respect, I guess. But anyway, I'm sorry this review was a little bit of a mess, but I love Radio Silence. I love everything about it. I love how relatable it was, and I think you guys should read it if you haven't already. I gave this book 5 out of 5 stars. It was a really easy 5-star read for me, and yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you soon with a new video.